Hello, in today's video, we're going to be taking care of a transmission fluid leak on this 2009 Cadillac CTS-V, which by now seems to be a pretty common occurrence on these vehicles. And when I began looking around for this leak, I noticed signs of fluid leaking in this area, which are mainly focused just behind the transmission. First, I noticed the exhaust showing signs of fluid leaking on it, and secondly, the fluid here by the crossmember, which at first I thought maybe all this fluid was from the transmission overflow hose. But then I noticed some up around the tunnel as well, and realized maybe it's coming from the transmission flange, which these vehicles have a problem where the center bolt that bolts up to the flange becomes loose and allows transmission fluid to leak past the seal. Well, the first thing we'll want to do is lift the vehicle with the front high enough to give us access, making sure that it's supported by jack stands as well. Then we'll lift the rear so the rear wheels are off the ground. This will allow us to rotate the drive shaft, or otherwise known as propeller shaft. Now that we got it lifted, what I'm going to use to loosen the bolts will be an 8mm Allen head socket attached to a universal joint, plus a 6-inch extension and a 3-inch extension as well. This setup worked pretty good for me based on the room that we'll have to work with. Well, let's go ahead and get started. From here we'll be able to access 3 of the 6 bolts, and whenever using this hex bit socket, you want to make sure to get it in as far as it goes to avoid stripping the inside. They're going to be pretty tight due to the fact that they have Loctite on them, but being that it's blue Loctite, it shouldn't be too bad. Now that we got this one loose, let's go ahead and remove it completely. Here you can notice all the fluid all over the bolt, another sign that it's leaking from here. Now on to the next one. We'll be doing the same for this one as well. Getting the socket in as far as it goes, then loosen it and remove it completely. And on to our third bolt. These bolts do come with these washer brackets that sit behind 2 of the bolts, so you'll want to pay attention to where they go as you remove them. With our third bolt off, plus its washer bracket, we'll need to rotate the drive shaft to remove the remaining 3. So let's get in the car, turn the key without starting the car. Now while pressing the brake pedal, let's shift the vehicle into neutral. Now we can rotate the wheel, then go back underneath to check the position so we place them in a spot to access the remaining 3 bolts. Once we got them lined up to where we want them, let's put the car back into park and turn the key off. At this point we'll want to mark the drive shaft in correspondence to the position of the transmission flange. I'm using whiteout to brush on the line, just like so. This will be important to making sure that we line everything up as it was and avoid any possible balance issues. Now that we got it marked, we can remove the remaining 3 bolts plus the washer brackets, once again paying attention to where they went. And finally our last bolt. Now with the final one removed, let's pull back on the drive shaft, which did move back slightly. To get the remainder off, I'm going to use something like the screwdriver to pry it back far enough to maneuver it around the flange opening. Once you get it out, move it off to the side as best you can to give you access to the center bolt. And here we got a pretty good view of the issue with these vehicles. This bolt is loose and backed out on its own, which it should not do. letting me basically remove it by hand. So we're going to do just that and remove it. And now that we got it off, let's clean it and use some blue Loctite so it won't do that again. Putting just a little on the lower threads like so. Now that we got the bolt ready, let's reinstall the bolt. And the socket we're going to use for this bolt will be an 18mm. Using the socket, we'll thread it in as far as we can by hand. Then use a ratchet to tighten it till it's snug. Now we can final torque it to 77 foot-pounds of torque. Now that we got that torqued, we can reinstall the drive shaft, making sure to line up the marks that we placed on the assembly. Now that we got them lined up and ready, we'll need to first clean the bolts and also put Loctite on these threads as well. With the bolts prepped, let's start getting these bolts back in. For now we only want to get them on hand tight till we can get all the bolts back in. So once again putting the vehicle in neutral and rotating the wheel till we have access to the others. Now that we got all the bolts in and hand tight, plus the drive shaft completely pushed back into place, let's begin tightening them. They do have a specific torque sequence to tighten them, which I'll put up somewhere on the side for you guys. For the first step, we want to bring down each bolt in sequence using solely the ratchet. After we got every bolt tight, we now torque each one in the proper order to 48 foot-pounds. I put a little mark on the side of each bolt that I torqued just to make sure. And once we got all 6 bolts torqued to spec, it completes our repair. Well, I hope you were able to find this video helpful or informative. If so, please click that thumbs up button to support my video and my channel. And please subscribe if you haven't done so.